Hello, what's up, everyone? How you guys all doing? Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Welcome to the next Level Up Cup. Um, yeah. You guys all know who we are, and yeah. Wait, let me have you guys introduce yourselves. We have Pantry, Once Love, Tyler again. If you guys don't know who they are, let's have you guys introduce yourselves. Sorry, be right back.
Wait, he just ditched us.
All right, top to bottom. Let's go.
What's up?
Just like Whitey said, as we get older, let's go.
Alright, so as you guys can see, I'm in the tech shop today. My name is Spencer. I am an E7 streamer. I will be analyzing for today's matches. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hi, I'm Once in Love. Primarily stream mobile gacha games, stream E7 at least once a week. I'm here to analyze with you guys as well.
Hey guys, it's your boy Tiber. Tiber Septim in game. Used to be a big part of the high-end competitive E7 community, but have since retired, Pog Champ. I am your resident PvE player. Let's go. But jokes aside, real hype to see some great RTA matches with some of the biggest names in E7 today. Looking forward to it, y'all.
So for the particular matchups, is there anything you guys want to see? Like, are you looking for specific comps or units today? Do you want to see people, counter-picking certain things from others?
Yeah, I mean, Jinx and Tryhard, two of my former guild mates, are some of the best-known speed game, big snipe, big cleave energy. They come and swing out the gates, and since they have such similar playstyles, we've seen them play each other in Pantry's tournament. So if they happen to win their respective matches, that would be an interesting matchup. Code and Jinx, as you had mentioned from yesterday, we had the chance to see both of them play, and that's probably the story of the unstoppable force of the immovable object. For those that don't know, Jinx is very offensive, as I had just said, and Code currently rank one on the RTA ladder. I see Sky King is back. Rank 1 on the RTA ladder is known for his extremely powerful gear and very tanky playstyle. So that is a big match to watch out for, I think.
I think he fell to the Bulge.
Oh.
Aether Bulge is actually rank 1 now.
Oh.
Rank 2.
Okay. This is right
upside.
Never mind. Washed up confirmed? Not kidding.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, we do have the bracket up, !bracket if you're looking for that. We have in the first match, it'll be Tatsuni versus Tryhard. And then we have Jinx versus Code. We have Big B0 Nur, also known as Eska versus Snow. And then Aether Bulge versus Careless.
Big boner.
Also, today, the formatting is a little bit different. So instead of best of threes, we have best of fives, I believe.
I believe best of five is starting at semis, right? Or is it? It's still best of threes in the quarters, I believe, right?
Yes. For quarters, it should be best of 3, and then proceeding afterwards, it should be best of 5s for, I believe, the third place match, the semis, the third place match, and the grand final and the finals.
So yeah, so quarters is best of 3, semis first place, and third place will be best of 5s. Yeah. So on that note, chat, who are you guys rooting for? Yeah, what's your bias, and who do you guys want to see win this tournament here, guys?
I vote for Gabe.
What? Huh?
I think I want to see Careless win.
I'd be down for Careless because he's on my team. At the same time, I also want Eska to win because he's in my guild. So I'm a bit conflicted. At the same time, it's like I'm cheating on someone now.
You see, my team is actually quite stacked. All of them made it to the quarterfinals. All 3 of them. Tryhard, Jinx, and
no,
Big
no
B.
reflection here.
Yo,
Okay, this guy's just flexing.
I have some high chances here. Let's be real.
Yeah, so to go along with that,
Oh
who's
my God.
actually still in the tournament? Because all 3 of my contestants are knocked out. Who's in here for everyone? So like, who's playing for what team? Like, so Tryhard, Jinx, and Asuka are all for you, right, Penchui?
Yep.
So who's Tatsuni playing for?
Tatsuni is from Jagan.
Okay. Code is also from
Code is
Jagan's.
from Jagan. Snow X is from Level Up Together. So we have Level Up Together there. Aether Bulge is from Car 6. And then Careless is mine.
Wow, there's only like 4 teams left. Penchy's got a stacked chance for this one.
All right. Well, I mean, aside from that, you guys probably want to see the matches get started. So without further ado, let me pass it off to Arkadin, the other Gabe, and he'll get you guys started on that, and we'll see the matches start soon.
Thank you very much, other Gabe. Guys, welcome to the Level Up Cup Day 2, where we are going to be going into rounds of best of 3 for these top 8. Once they reach the top 4 after all of this first round happens of today, that means that everyone else from then on out is actually in the prize pool for takeaways on money. So just so you guys in case you didn't know, the takeaways are $50 for 4th place, $100 for 3rd place, $150 for 2nd place, and then $200 for our grand final winners of the Level Up Cup, which is super, super exciting. We're just glad that we're able to do this like as a group. So without further ado, let me introduce the casters with me today. We have Lilac again from yesterday from Veritas. Go ahead, you guys. Actually, I'll just let you guys do it. Go ahead. Lilac, then Car, then Warball.
Yo, what up, chat? What up? How are you guys doing? I hope you guys enjoyed all the matches yesterday. Today is looking stacked, so I'm excited. I mean, I'm a neutral party. I don't have any stakes in this, but I'm hoping to see some good-ass games and some interesting picks. I'm gonna, hopefully bring you guys good commentary today.
It's my turn?
Yeah.
What's going on, guys? Car here, CEO of the Car Lot, Team Car 6. So today, guys, make sure you root for Aether Bulge. But overall, I think I just want to see some amazing games. Top 8, by the way, some of the other streamers here are kind of flexing a bit. We still got one contender. So let's just see some great games. But Team Aether Bulge, let's go.
Hey, what's up, chat? I finally made it. I had to work yesterday, but I'm here now. My entire team just kind of got wrecked already, so I guess I'm gonna root for Bulge and Car 6, and I'm looking forward to
What
some
about Snow?
amazing.
Hello? We can stack this together. All casters, listen. We've all got to be versus Panshui today. Is basically where we're at. So everyone versus Panshui seems more than fair. There's almost no way that his team doesn't walk away with money today, which is pretty nuts. So. Let's go. Okay, Panshui cheering for himself. Guys, that's a perfect example, by the way, of the way you can cheer. So if you guys want to cheer today as well, if you look down in the description and or in the chat, you'll be able to purchase some of those packs, and you can also do that to support your streamers. Let's jump directly into pick ban phase. They've already gone hard at it. Tatsuni versus Tryhard. You're going to notice right off the bat we have a Basar ban, like pre-ban and Ruel. So these guys, I wonder how often we're going to see today a lot of the I guess bans that we saw yesterday. Like talk me through what we were seeing yesterday as opposed to what we're seeing now, cuz Ruel is a very high level initial ban to go like, I know there's a lot of defense behind this, which is what we talked about a little bit yesterday. Kind of fill me in on what these picks look like right now, cuz this has gone crazy fast.
And it's the first match, all of these units are absolutely new units that we've never seen before. So I'm sure that, they're all very experienced with picking these. I'm sure they've played each other. I'm sure these guys know what's up. So, no need to try anything too fancy, because after this, you still have like potentially 2 series of best of 5 to go through, right? So just pick some standard stuff. Everyone knows how to deal with that. Check each other's gear out and see from there, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the question I think that everybody has on their mind is, are we going to see these guys come out with new stuff right off wow, that was a lot of damage. Are they going to come out with new stuff right off the bat, Or are we going to see them kind of wait out and wait until they get to the final four before we start seeing some actual diversity in chat pools? Or do we not see that at all anyways?
Well, it's going to, I mean, I guess I'm curious to see if anyone has changed up their units between yesterday and today. I'm curious to see if anyone has prepped more units in response to like specific players. But right off the bat, just
counter on PN was huge, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the first turn itself, right? The Res S2 not letting the defense break that allowed the Charles to live, whereas you know, this Watcher Shuri could very well not have an attack up right now. So that missed defense break was actually pretty big.
Yeah.
Dang, back down to a 3v3 right off the bat. These guys are going hard right from the get-go. We are seeing that Watcher Shuri pick that everybody had kind of talked about yesterday as kind of being a sort of a pocket pick for certain situations. Why do you think that ended up getting picked in this particular match?
I think, you know, if you have a Watcher Shuri and the enemy, you know, you feel pretty comfortable with it, that Watcher Shuri pretty much just deletes the APOC, right? And we've established how strong a unit that Apocalypse Ravi is as time goes by in the match and Fervor's Frenzy stacks kick in. So getting rid of her right off the bat seems pretty attractive.
And we all saw this counter DN, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the thought process behind that?
Well, maybe the thought process.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The CR gain that she gets on her S1 is pretty big, as we just saw. The more turns,
sure, but is
in
in a big tournament like this, Warball, is that too risky? Or I mean, it looks like it's paying off here, but wow.
I don't think it's really a surprise anymore because people have seen it. But I could definitely see that catching some people off guard if they forget about it.
And there are two sides to the argument, right? The CR game is certainly super nice, and the fact that, you know, the end corrected, sort of half corrected the missed defense break effect by killing the Charles is also pretty nice. But we've also seen a lot of people just focus on the end, especially when it comes down to like a 2v2 late game situation, right? They just need to get rid of the DN, right? And the DN can take some extra turns or put out some more chip damage that could potentially turn some things. But also, she doesn't do that much damage, so against things like SSB specifically, that's just additional like bar for SSB.
Right.
Hey, quick question for the interaction there with Roz. Mm-hmm. Was that a Roz S2 killed Vildred? Vildred came back, did his attack, and then the second attack finally came through? Because it seemed like there was an attack from DN, and then we saw DN's turn happen right there. Was that an interaction that I missed, or how does that work?
I think she just took a natural turn because of the CR bar, right?
Yeah.
I'm no longer sure if I caught that. So maybe
it's all right. We don't have a replay cam, so there's no way for us to really look into it. But it does look like Tatsu takes game one right off the bat. Wow. That was fast. We were talking about earlier, so talk to me about this, because the analysts were talking about this a little bit just a second ago. These first two matches of the day between Tryhard and Tatsuni and Jinx and Code are the more likely compositions that we're going to start seeing. If anyone's going to do Cleavy type things, it's going to be these guys, right? Do we really feel like we saw that with what Tatsu was doing there and into Tryhard that last time around, or are they kind of playing a little differently to sort of match the player they're going against?
From Tatsu, it seemed pretty standard in terms of like what units he uses, and then from what I saw in Tryhard with Panshui's tournament, it was pretty similar there as well. I think it was just a more of a all-in comp versus a more safe comp, and the safe comp I think just took it there.
Gotcha. Takes that first game right off the bat. That felt quick. I mean, I know we did like 16 games yesterday, but like, if we see more games like that, holy cow, we're going to be over with the Level Up Cup.
No, that was definitely quick. I'm hoping though, if we can see some ML Taiwan from Tatsuni again.
Oh, true. That's right. Because Tatsu is the one that has been pulling that out throughout this tournament. So that's a very, very unique pick, I think, to Tatsu so far. Not everybody is playing that at the moment. Well, they are almost ready. They're having to do the back and forth. Whoever got first pick banned. So we'll be into that fight here in just a second. If you're tryhard, do you adjust a lot in your draft at this point, or do you think it was what? I mean, it seemed pretty one-sided, so I would assume you're going to have to make adjustments. It wasn't like an RNG carry that Tatsu went through with, correct?
I think that tryhard definitely has to think about a couple of things, right? And it wasn't super obvious in the first round before, because theoretically, if you are tryhard, your Charles should have died. He shouldn't have gotten that S3 off, and the first turn went over so fast that we didn't really notice, right? This could be an instance of he got a little bit surprised, because we can't actually tell just by looking at the CR bar how fast that Raz was. Because the Raz did take the first turn, and if I'd imagine that if your Charles has some speed and you're confident in his speed, then you can forego you can forego some other stats. But I think he may or may not have been prepared for how fast the Raz was, so he definitely needs to account for that, right? Because there is also an argument. We also don't know that if the Watcher Shuri didn't have the attack up, would he have gotten rid of the APOC? So even though tryhard lost, there were some things that did go in his favor, and he should be even more worried about stuff like that.
That's a good point. And then also, speaking to this to all of the players as well today, they have the ability, there's no rule against them having changed out any gear or moved some artifacts around, so we may be seeing some totally different looking things today as well too. Okay, Car's pointing at it. We've got the ML Tywin and the ML Ken coming in here, ML Ken being the slight counter to the Arbiter Vildred. Do you think the more bruisery draft from Tatsu takes this? Because this is definitely more of a, like for tryhard here, this is definitely looking a lot more just heavy damage.
I hope that tryhard's been paying attention to some HP values, and I hope he understands how exactly how much his Watcher Shuri does, because this is going to be a testament to his level of play and how well he knows his units, right? Because Watcher Shuri himself does a very finite amount of damage. And so he needs to pick his targets carefully, because if he spends an S3 and doesn't end up killing, for example, if he misses the ML Ken or he misses the ML Tywin for whoever he chooses to go for, he misses the kill, then it becomes very awkward.
Yeah.
Some big damage coming out there with the cat. Oh my god.
Tywin.
What's that?
I think Tatsu may potentially just die here, though.
Just from the extra
I said this before.
blade.
His ML Tywin does a lot of damage.
Because we're going to get an ML Ken counter here into SSB, and then ML Ken just dies from Watcher Shuri.
So if this defense break lands, which it can't because there is immunity up, so are we worried at this point? Probably, surely for the ML Tywin, but
that ML Ken is super dead.
Yep, doesn't matter because of the Watcher Shuri.
Well, that was another really fast match.
Yeah, big. I mean, honestly, a big turnaround though to be seeing it coming from the absolute other side, and it honestly feels pretty one-sided.
Unless he one-shots everyone right here. Watch it.
Serious question though: if the RB didn't proc Alexa's greater attack twice, do you think that would have changed the outcome?
Possibly.
I think so. If it's just the Arbiter, right, then maybe not, because SSB did land the defense break, right?
Yeah.
And that defense break was also huge. So there were a couple of factors going in tryhard's way there. I think all of it added up to make it look super clean. Where if we're missing one of those things, then honestly, I can't tell.
Honestly, this is pretty huge. The fact that the very first match of the day is going to Game 3 is amazing, and they are already back into the pick ban phase. So we're going to jump right into it.
So what do you do if you're Tatsu here? Because I don't think tryhard is going to be changing. Oh, he took the FCC this time.
Does still get his Arbiter Vildred. Obviously very confident in that build. Is Tatsu going to just tank up? Because I'm seeing a lot of bruise and a lot of I mean, honestly, taking the 50-50 on the crit reduction on the DN. Do you think he just tanks up here?
Yeah, I think we might see an A-Raz and potentially like Lilius. He did a similar draft yesterday, also after Tywin.
I mean, tryhard's feeling pretty confident, right? Because he definitely felt like he had enough damage overall going into that last match. And I'm almost convinced now, after seeing the first two matches, that this Charles is just there to set up. He's probably a speedier Charles, probably just there the S3 so to enable the rest of his team.
So interesting.
You think in a circumstance where using a Charles like that, Holy Sack would be better than using Elvers?
It's arguable, right? Because if you are just going for some big burst damage, then having that chance to add a S1, potentially S2 into the equation just helps you so much, right? Whereas a Holy Sack, if they're going to focus your Charles, he basically makes it such that your team takes one, maybe two more extra hits. So if he's going for just all-out pouring damage onto the opponent, then I'd say that something a little bit more aggressive is viable.
That makes sense. Guys, it looks like your predictions are pretty much spot on. Between Carr guessing the Ross coming up second. Oh my gosh, and now we're seeing it with the Little Queen. We have seen this now before. I believe it was Tatsu that did this, that had a very tank up comp right off the bat and kind of relies on the Ross and the dual attacks with the Little Queen. Oh, does get rid of the Ross, but we also are seeing the same thing from Tryhard, saying listen, my damage is just far superior. Here we go. I'm just gonna go right into it.
We don't see the Watcher Shuri this time.
That's true. Does
Maybe
have
he's
FCC
a little
for a
bit,
little bit more
concerned
tank.
about Little Queen's S2 potentially nerfing his damage.
Or just the innate CR gain she gets, because she actually does cut here. So the Watcher would have probably just died in this draft.
Decides to go for FCC. Is this going to be enough damage right off the bat? Does crit.
I don't think it'll kill, but
Doesn't
I do
kill.
think that he was really encouraged to use it there for the HP gain.
That makes sense. So if you're CC right now, do you put up skill? Yep, it is going to go skill nullifier. At what point, if you were playing FCC in scenarios like this, what's the spot that makes you think okay, I need to just try and taunt somebody right here over the skill nullify?
I think FCC's in this kind of position. I think you go for the taunt if preventing that one turn of skill usage makes a kill difference, right? Makes a difference between a kill or a live or a dead unit on either side of the team. And I think that if you don't feel like that is the case, or you don't feel confident that you have enough effectiveness to land the provoke on the target you're trying to provoke, then you don't go for that.
It's looking pretty dire here in game 3. Real quick for Tatsuni, do we think we have any ability to come back at this point? It's looking like there's just so much
very
damage.
dire.
Well, we have this.
It depends on what happens here, I think.
Yeah, we have the Resurrect coming out from APOC, and then we're gonna see if Tatsu can take advantage of the res here.
That was.
I don't think Charlotte was a res you needed.
Oh,
Has
the
Arbiter
dual
died
attack
yet?
though.
No, not yet.
Arbiter
Nope,
hasn't
still
died
alive,
yet.
yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, then that makes things a lot more difficult. That makes
Left Ravi.
We do have skill
You have
null.
skill null up on one.
okay. That makes things a little bit less difficult.
Does it
No
kill
crit on the
anybody?
Ravi.
Doesn't
That's
kill
actually
anyone.
Wow.
Does not kill the Alencia.
However, we are going to get a rebuttal from SSB. This could be the game changer right here. Does take out 2.
Well, this
Hey, Ravi versus the
is
world.
gonna need to counter her butt off right here, and also not miss. There's
Oh.
one.
There it is. Finishes off the Arbiter Vildred.
Oh, one crit here.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
one more
Oh
counter
my
here.
God.
One more counter.
There it is.
Oh my
the final
God.
counter. And
Oh,
What a
Tatsuni,
turnaround.
Make it happen.
Tatsuni takes out Tryhard. Oh my goodness. What a great first match. Guys, we're going to hand this back to the analyst desk and let them talk through that because that was an incredible match.
That last round, it's always the last rounds that becomes the most intense and most insane clutch moments. But before we get in round 3, let's hear Pantry talk us through round 1 and how that counter DN really helped Tatsu there.
All right, so let's recap round 1 real quick. That match 1 was actually quite quick. Even the casters didn't even know what the heck they were talking about. But basically, what happened here was Tatsu actually responded with just mostly all bruisers starting off. Tryhard actually just going straight in, playing super aggressive with his drafts, going all damage dealers, not even backing away from it. Following into the match, Tatsu opens up with his Ras S2, attempting to knock out the non-immunity Charles. However, it failed to kill. The Charles countered back, lowered the A-Robbie, but probably didn't really matter too much. The Charles eventually, the turn order came back to Tryhard. Charles used his S3, giving attack buff for his entire team. The DN countered using the Celestine to heal up, while also pushed her and let the setup happen with the crit res and everything else. From there, Tryhard was actually able to go flip the coin and actually have his Watcher Shuri one-shot the A-Robbie. But from there, it didn't exactly matter too much. All the cooldowns was used from Tryhard's side, and then Tatsu just tanked out the rest of the game. Tatsu actually held onto his souls for quite a long time. He actually held it for the Ras S2, rinsing the guaranteed dual attack every single time, and eventually the FCC executed every single unit from there.
Thank you for taking us through that again. And round one did go to Tatsu there. And then round two, though, game two, Tryhard does take it back with that. And Once in Love, can you tell us what happened there and how Tryhard brought that around?
Yeah. Can you hear me first? Is the mic good?
Yep, we're all good.
Okay, cool. Because I DC'd earlier, so I wanted to make sure. Round two was actually really interesting. So I think that Tryhard had a really big advantage with the information he got from round one, knowing that the DN was going to be on counter set. So like that was the big deal breaker for Tryhard. He went into that match. He picked a very aggressive draft. Once he saw that FSSE, he knew that he could try to bait it out with the Cerise, like bait the Cerise ban. And then having the last pick opportunity, just slams in the Watcher Shuri, knows his team is entirely faster, and just has a huge advantage to go in. Leaves the ML Ken up because he wants the extra damage from A Villager dying and coming back. Even without the greater attack buff procs, with the SSB being there and the Watcher Shuri, the ML Ken will go down. The ML Tywin does have a chance to take it back with the counters and the Elbrus procs, but overall, I think Tryhard really, really had a stronger draft with the Cerise and then the last pick Watcher Shuri to bait out the Cerise ban. Because he knew he didn't have to ban the FSSE. He knew he had the damage for it. The only thing that could stop his entire comp was this DN countering and cutting him. So that one was 100% decided in draft, I think.
Yeah, and we can see that. Like, it felt really calculated. Everything felt really smooth. He kind of knew exactly what was going on. And definitely game two felt very controlled in Tryhard's favor there. And game three, Tiber, do you want to take us through that exciting game and how Tatsu took that back?
Yeah, I can try my hand at that. That was an incredibly exciting match. Well played to both of them. With regards to the way that Tryhard drafted and banned, going into game three, a big part of playing in tournaments and playing competitive games in general is responding to the information that you've received previously. We saw the DN ban in match two, identifying how powerful anti-crit is. But going into match three, he opted to ban the Adventurer Ross instead. And to his credit, as Pantry had said, Ross opening with that S2 was incredibly dangerous. Charles lived on a sliver from game one. So I don't think necessarily it was a bad ban. I think it was a rock and a hard place, Could he have tried to switch things up instead of sticking to his formula? Maybe try to take away those units, or make a different pre-ban, so that one of the two things that are countering you is removed, and then you can ban the other one. Maybe, but nonetheless, we saw most of the 50-50s go into Tatsu's favor towards the end. From earlier on in the match, we saw the sheer amount of damage, even though LQC's passive, which gives her combat readiness when she's hit, for those that aren't aware. The sheer overwhelming damage was giving it a really good look for Tryhard earlier on in the game. As soon as A-Robbie brought back LQC, which is an RNG proc, 50-50 there, with the skill nullifier, that was game. I believe there was a dual attack to kill the FCC, but you know, Arabi doing Arabi thing, that was incredibly powerful.
Thank you. And without further ado, let's get on into the next match. And Arkadin, take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. Honestly, really good analyzing of that. I actually never even would have considered a counter set DN. Is the reason for that the combat readiness push on the S1? Is that like the reason? Do you get combat readiness push, or what do you get from the S1 on DN? I don't feel like most people think about that most of the time.
When she is buffed, you gain 30%.
When she's buffed, you gain 30%. That's huge. Is that normal? Are people seeing this? Also, not to skip out on kind of what we're doing here with Code and Jinx, because this was like a match of the day right here. We are jumping directly into Jinx is just going to go round one doing what Jinx does, which is I'm going to try and cleave you. What are you going to do about it? And it looks like Code is saying, all right, I'll play your game, because I'm not seeing as much beef on Code's side.
You're not seeing as much obvious beef on Code's side.
This is true.
Little do you know that is a 20k. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Like the Mirza here is very.
No, I think you're onto something. Like I think even his non-beefy characters are beefy compared to
so you're
everyone
telling
else,
me
right?
that is a 25k Mirza counter set holding 2 artifacts.
We can find out right now.
I think more than anything, I guess where I could see what you mean by is a little bit more beefy is like you've got a little bit of RNG in that, right? Like you still have kind of a 50-50 on Mirza whether or not she's going to take damage. Dizzies are usually built a little bit tankier than most other characters. SSB, depending on how he builds it, and he does have FCC, so he's got some interesting picks. Like going into it, I'm seeing a lot of damage on Code's side, but also a lot of like I'm failing to see the synergy. But this is what happens when you put like rank 1s in a box with me. They just know more. So I'm very excited to see how this plays out. You do have a pretty much cleave is what I'm seeing on the other side from Jinx. So not having the A Vildred and also not having the Mirza, we're going to take this into the first round. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about this ban phase and moving into the fight?
I'm thinking I'm a little bit sad because we'll never get to see the 25k HP Mirza. But yeah. Also, just to throw back to the previous match real quick, Watcher Shuri prevents that APOC from doing whatever she did on the last round.
That is a lot of souls.
That is a lot of souls.
That is a lot of souls. Almost full souls bar.
We talked about this yesterday, right? Like you stand on the conductor's desk, you have all these souls, and you're here to play. So we're gonna see Jinx take a whole, I don't know, 7 turns, and then we're gonna see what he can do within those 7 turns. Because this is going to be a good litmus test, right? C-Dom is extremely difficult to tank against. So this is going to be a good test for both players to see whether or not, Code can stand up to the damage coming out from Jinx.
Yep, burns the SSB, takes the SSB out right off the bat. Moving on to Spectre Tenebria. Who's the target here now? With Spectre Tenebria, are you trying to pop the and get the invulnerability up on Kayron, or are you going to try and pop somebody else?
Possibly, but I'm also I would also be very cautious using Spectre Tenebria on turn 1, right? Because for like players that have less experience using her, I just really don't like the turn 1 burn a bunch of turns and try to snipe a target. I think a lot of times we've seen it in the other like prelims too. When a lot of players try this, they forget that she loses the attack up on the 3rd turn. And as a result, she fails to kill a lot of things. And in this case, she didn't even get the attack up because the C-Dom was the one.
Interesting. Was the goal, you think, on that one just to get the stun? To say, like, I want to get the invulnerability popped, and I'm just going to stun something else because I know that they have unbuffable up, so I should be pretty safe.
Well, getting rid of Dizzy is very helpful, right? Because your team has no defense against the Dark Arts. So if Dizzy gets an S3 off, a lot of your team is going to do much less. So getting the stun on the Dizzy was very, very helpful because now his team doesn't have 16,000 debuffs on them.
Right, exactly. And maybe he was expecting that was as many turns as it was going to take before he thought he could finish off the Dizzy early. So I guess we'll find out now. It's Tenebria's turn again.
We do know he had 4 books, so there's going to be no abyssal stuns coming out of this Bazaar either.
Very good point. So I wonder if he leaves that moving forward, or if Jinx trades that out later, depending on if he ends up moving forward, who he has to play. Out of curiosity, do you guys think that Code sort of played into Jinx's game here? To me, I feel like picking the way that Code did here sort of looks like he's saying, okay, I'm going to play your game, Jinx. I'm not going to force you into what I normally do. Do you think if Jinx takes this, do you see Code switching back over to being like we were saying yesterday, sort of like if you had to pick between a sword and a shield, Jinx would be the sword, Code would be the shield. Do you see them doing that?
I wouldn't worry
again?
so much about that because this K-Run's about to retaliate right here.
Ooh,
very
which was
close.
Solid.
Almost.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because if the K-Ron got the kill on the S10 and at least, right, then we have a real game on our hands.
Well, it looks like Jinx pulled it out with his own strategy. So I guess I asked the question a second time because now he's actually achieved it. I probably spoke too soon early, but do we see Code swapping over to sort of the style we had seen Code playing before, or do we see him continuing to try into Jinx? Because Jinx pretty boldly stated, like, I've got pretty amazing cleave units. Fight me. But we also know that Code has amazing tanky units. So what do you take from this?
I think definitely you don't go into the next matchup letting the enemy get a lot of picks like they just did, right? Because no matter how tanky your units are, if the enemy takes more turns than you every single time you take a turn, it becomes extremely difficult to tank up against that. Now the thing is, combo cleavers like this are easier to pick apart than most people think, because you have a lot of options between pre-bans, counter picking, and then post-banning. If you can identify the key units in their draft and take them out some way or another, then their combo starts falling apart.
Interesting. So this will be interesting to see then, like what Code decides to do. He does decide to pick Arbiter Vildred first time around, so potentially going with a similar style to what he was playing and just saying, like, I'm just going to keep trying to pick this apart. Jinx getting the SSB this time around.
Did Code pre-ban Flitica last match?
I believe so, but I don't think Elena was there. I think it was Flitica and something else. I can't remember which it was, but Elena, I think, is new. It might be the exact same band.
No, it was Elena last round.
It was
too.
Elena? Okay.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So I think same bands, but I need to get a earpiece in for my analyst to be able to be like, no, idiot, it was this. Someday we'll get
No,
there.
idiot, it was the same.
Oh, thanks, dude. Okay. I mean, that was almost in my ear. Perfect. So we do have the same bands then coming out. Jinx is getting Ox slots and is honestly looking to do a similar thing again. Code does tank up and bring Crow this time, but we do see the Dizzy as well. Picks Mirsa again. Maybe trying to get a different ban, hoping to see the Mirsa come through.
Well, for however many souls that Jinx brought last match, I definitely think that if you are Code and you are playing against this, you have to think pretty hard about the CDOM and how you're going to handle the damage that's going to come out from her if you let her through. And it's whether or not you can necessarily just straight up ban out the CDOM is going to depend on Jinx's last pick too, right? Because sometimes if Jinx picks some unanswerable cleaver here, then it becomes incredibly difficult to choose between what kind of damage you want to take.
Yeah, it's a good point. He does decide to tank up with the Ruel at the end. So this is already shaping up to be a significantly tankier comp than we saw from Code. And the first round, who do you think he bans here? It looks like CDOM is where he's going. Where do we see Jinx banning? Because I know he banned the Mirsa last time. Do you think he bans Mirsa again, or do we get rid of the Crow or the Ruel being kind of like newcomers to this team? Or do you just see a Vildred? I know that's banned a lot too. There, ends up being a Vildred.
A Vildred's a pretty big threat to his comp. There's no real way of dealing with him other than trying to double kill him with S10, which I don't think is a realistic play, considering this is Code, and we all know his Arbiter Vildred is fat by this point.
Yeah, most likely. Although I have to imagine most of the big names that are in here probably have a pretty thick pile of gear they're sitting on, and probably have moved around a lot of gold's worth of gear on these characters to prepare for this tournament. So, into game number 2. do we see Code coming back out and trying with a different sort of strategy this time around, seeing similar results to Jinx's cleave?
Code's team is definitely a lot more resilient this time because Mirsa has a really high dodge chance, and even if she's squishy and she doesn't take that much damage from a miss, and more importantly, on a miss you don't apply any secondary effects, so no debuffs will be coming out, and we know for a fact that that is not a crown, right? So this Mirsa is actually going to be very, very surprisingly resilient against debuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting, like, I'm assuming it's usually run Moonlight Dreamblade on Mirsa, correct?
Absolutely, and we saw it pop up at the start of the match, so we know for a fact that that's Moonlight Dreamblade. So I think Jinx recognizes that too. He just wants to get rid of, him because Mirsa also hits very, very hard.
After
that
seeing...
Mirsa takes a turn, that A-Lot is dead.
Yeah, like Lilac said, Code just looks so much stronger this round. If he just lives past a few turns, he should be able to get this one.
I would totally agree with you. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Scratch that.
It's sort of like unlucky, right? Because you're expecting that, like, every once in a while you're going to get lucky. It feels like a 50-50 with her most of the time. So at this point, Ruel is going to have to probably bring that back up and then hope to have better luck and better success next time around. But as long as he's able to slowly chip away at this, you can see in Code's draft that he has a lot of beef to be able to, like, kind of deal with this. And if he does eventually get a turn on Dizzy, it's going to slow that cleave down significantly. So Jinx needs to finish this in the next few rounds. Otherwise, this is going to be like significantly more rough to deal with as time goes on.
RNG not on his side, and Code is currently down 0-1. So his tournament life this is it.
Yep. This could be the end, or it could be the beginning.
Not quite over. Yeah, he's still in a pretty
I would
decent
agree.
position. So, and to Jinx's favor, the fact that he had 3 turns on Spectenny, he had a very good chance of killing the Mirsa if that's all he wanted to do. I think the only thing that swung was the fact that on the second hit he got the kill, so he could use the stun on Dizzy. So that was the pretty big outcome. But then Ruel is going to get a turn here, and we know that Mirsa is very, very, very close to the top of the CR bar. So whenever she decides to come back, if she decides to come back, she is going to get a turn in.
Yeah, that's huge. And I do think, from what you guys are saying too, that was probably the smart play. Oh my gosh, double crown proc. That feels
it's right here.
bad.
It's right here. And suddenly the match is very, very true.
Yeah, it's now very favored in Code's side. Because now that he's got a full health Dizzy, one S3 from Dizzy coming off here really, really soon, and you now have the ability to bring up your Mirsa pretty safely, knowing the Mirsa's not going to get hit too hard, and you should be able to start wiping them out one at a time.
And there's no crown potential, so I think there's very little that you can do.
Yeah, I would agree. Very good secondary draft. Like, for second game, really loving what Code picked. Definitely recognizing, like, all right, dude, I'm gonna change this up a little bit. We're gonna make this a different ball game. So I love the adaptation. Hopefully Jinx doesn't immediately quit out of this and maybe takes the time to go, like, okay, how can I adjust to make him play my game again? Because I love that at first it seemed like in game 1 Jinx sort of forced Code to play his game. In game 2, Code is saying, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make you play my game, and I'm just gonna let you play your game. So what do we end up seeing here for game 3? Also, I should point out, extremely exciting that we're seeing this again, game 3 on our second match of today. These guys are obviously competitors. This wasn't nearly as one-sided as we would have thought, and I'm super glad that for the one that we thought was going to be a hot match today between Jinx and Code, that it's turning out to be obviously that. So what do you guys think about game 3?
I think that game 3 is going to be all about adaptation, right? Because the first game, that CDOM was the litmus test, and then we have realized that CDOM is just on a different level. After taking out the CDOM, suddenly Code's team look a lot more tanky and a lot more resilient as a result. So then now it's Jinx's turn, right? It's like, is Mirsa the problem? Because he banned out the Mirsa in the first game, and that got him a win. So now he needs to identify, like, how he's gonna punch through, where he's gonna, find the gap in Code's defenses.
That's right. We are seeing the first pick again of Avilder from Code, which is huge. Does Jinx decide to kind of pick the same comp again? Hope for a different result? Because he did, I think, pick SSB first pick last time around too.
Yeah.
We are seeing the same pre-bans. And I think you hit on something that's pretty important too, Lilac, to say that CDOM is the pick I need to get rid of. If I can get rid of that one, I'm getting rid of a book, I'm getting rid of a single target nuker, and it actually is slowing down the team just long enough for me to be able to just turn things around. I love what you said about that. I think that was really, really good.
Jinx looking like he's taking his sweet time this time around. Maybe seeing his roster, taking a look through the other heroes.
I mean, I hope that that's a sign of consideration and not a sign of weakness. But knowing these players, I have confidence that they're just taking some time to consider. I'm sure they'll show
considering everything. Sure,
Yep.
I would agree. Does pick up the Mirsa earlier this time, and then also opts into Dizzy again.
Code, on the other hand, insta picks.
I think he saw that he could be extremely confident after that last round of like, okay, as long as I survive a couple turns and I think I know who I want to ban here, I think I got it figured out. So he's definitely giving signs of confidence, I think, in game 3. So hopefully Jinx does have some kind of answer here for that. Otherwise, Code will take this, but it is still one. I mean, it's 1-1, so it could go either way. Picks up FCC.
And this match has also shown us, right, that when Crown is not in play, Bazaar suddenly looks mortal, right? Because there's a couple of things that you can now do when you don't have to worry about potential stun procs just coming out from the Bazaar. And he effectively made the Bazaar look, like a very actually balanced unit.
Yeah, he kind of did until he gets to use all those books. The few times that he did get to use, like, I really did love his double pop of the the shotgun Tenebria in round 1 into that stun on Dizzy right off the bat. Like, that was a pretty unique way of using the books, especially with the damage on that Spec Tenny. So that was kind of cool. But you're right. I think then when it becomes Bazaar's turn, he does his S3, and if he's not stunning anybody at all, and his S2 doesn't have the chance to, how much danger do you have to worry about here? So do we see Bazaar in this last one? I would assume he hasn't had enough time to swap out that book, but maybe he did.
Yeah, so I feel like kind of have to get rid of the Rowana here. And then this is kind of I think this is one of those ones where it's pretty obvious in the ban pick Faith.
But it also looks like the pace has slowed down a little bit, right? So does that mean that Code feels more comfortable now that the pace of the overall match has slowed down a little bit? Because once you get rid of that S10, what really is threatening you that much other than SSB? Because we know that Bazaar, unless he has the fastest fingers and the highest APM, is not holding a crown. And you can sort of tell too if he has swapped the crown because you can look at the number of souls that he has on the enemy side.
Yeah.
Well, as we step into it, it does look like he does still have the book on. So because we do have
those are the souls, and now
souls.
You're a lot less worried.
Yeah, I think between Rowanna's S2 and Touch of Rakdos on this Ruel, I don't think Code's gonna take any damage.
Yeah, he ended up banning the Dizzy instead of the Rowana, right?
That was correct. Yeah, interesting choice. That wasn't initially what you guys were thinking. Warbot, why do you think he went Dizzy over Rowana, trying to play devil's advocate to what you had initially said?
Well, Dizzy shuts down his team probably equally as Rowana does. I think it was just a situation where Code just had a really good draft.
Well, he does have, again, I like the adaptations that Code has made in games 2 and 3. Definitely added a little bit of tank, not even a little bit of tank, it's Ruel, right? So added in the Ruel is totally fine to swap out the Crow this time with a Rowana, and says, I still have plenty of, I hate to keep using the word beef because it sounds weird, but so I'm just going to say it again. But there's lots and lots of tankiness on this side, more tankiness than before. We do lose. Who just got lost there? That was
the Mirsa got hit, so the Mirsa died. It happens when you actually play Mirsa. Well, I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of tank. There's a whole lot of very raw stats, but the important here is that there's no mitigation on the side of Code. right? Because usually Code likes to play with Knight artifacts and defense up, and we see none of that here. We do see some in the form of like Roana's S2, but that I think the Roana here fits a little bit into the draft because there is a Lilius, and we mentioned this yesterday a little bit, right? Because Roana really shuts down a lot of what Lilius wants to do with their S1, and she sort of like counterplays what SSB wants to do with their S2.
Right. And do we see if there's an Elbrus or not on the Fallen Ceci, or is it a different artifact?
I actually didn't catch what artifact she was holding.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either, because I suppose if that's also a counter artifact.
That is a Aureus, because
Aureus,
the damage splashed from the Bazaar onto.
Yep. There you go. Perfect. So we know we're not seeing any coming back from that, so that's actually probably good for the FCC. Good amount of debuffs up right now. If you're, yeah, I guess this is kind of. Do you S2 to cleanse off some debuffs off of your RB? Yep, looks like he's gonna do it.
I think that one of the most important things here are the mischance and the provoke. So even though Code does have a lot of like raw stats on his side, his units doesn't necessarily deal too well with tons of debuffs over the course of many turns.
Right.
So we're gonna see if some of that comes back to like affect his damage output.
Yeah.
I just noticed the HP on that FCC. Wow.
That is some thick shields coming out. The crazy thing too, and I think it hasn't been mentioned necessarily yet too, is Jinx has adapted. This is a different look than what we've seen from Jinx so far too. So I have to at minimum give credit to Jinx for trying something different here. We're just it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for him. But like, look at how much less.
It's looking pretty good right now, Arch. Yeah, he did make
100%.
it's definitely different.
And since you pointed out the FCC's HP, so we can do some quick math here. If the FCC is max Molad, which she probably is, she gives about a 4,700 barrier every single time she procs S2.
Damn, that's a huge barrier to get through.
Yeah, on a unit with like 10k HP, that's like half. That's 50% more EHP every single.
That's a beefy barrier.
That is.
I mean, if you look at the SSB's barrier right now.
What do you think about how effective is that against somebody like Mirza, who just like cuts though and just does big bursty damage? Is it enough? Because that one he didn't have the shield up, right? But that was, huge damage. So you're going to be able to cut through these shields and at least slowly whittle down, right? At this point, are you basically focused on I have to kill Ruel now? Like that's basically, I got 2 turns or 1 turn left to do it. Do we even have the damage to take that Ruel out before Arbiter Builder gets rezzed back up?
It's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult.
Because I don't think a defense break is going to land, and that's what really needs to happen.
Because a lot of what SSB does and a lot of her power comes from her S2, right? About how frequently it procs and the defense break that's going to land. So if your Ruel can not worry about the defense break thanks to high ER, and you have the Roana there to completely mitigate, stuff like that.
Yep.
Both dual attacks as well as the SSB's S2, it's going to make your units look very, very bulky.
Wow.
So this right here.
It's like an unnecessary res here. I think the Mirza could probably take it on her own at this point, but holy cow, that's huge.
We saw some, I guess, bad RNG from Mercy in the beginning. She got taken out quickly. Oh, wow, yield come out already. Jeez.
Yeah. I think Semi expected on that last one to see that towards the end. We're gonna hand this back to the analyst desk. Congratulations to Code moving forward.
GG's.
Jinx, well done, man. GG.
Yo. All right, guys. First 2 matches of the tournament, and we get 2 game 3s. If anything, that's honestly, like, from yesterday to now, best games to start off with. But on that note, let's have Once in Love take us through game 1 and how the CDOM there really made it tough for Code, and how Code realized that in game 2 later.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things in game 1 that felt a little out of place. So firstly, we didn't see Code pick the Crow. It wasn't pre-banned. All 3 matches had the pre-ban of Athletica and Elena. No Crow meant no mitigation, meant no defense buff. So it was interesting to see only the one Knight in that pick. I do like that he transitioned at the end towards the Kayron, but the only issue is with the way he has his Kayron built, not having Elia's knife or not having any sort of like damage artifact, using Moonlight Dreamblade instead, didn't actually have enough damage to kill, and also didn't have the soul gain to finish off the match at the end. On Jinx's side, though, I really like the commitment of the 4 books. I think that was absolutely incredible. It was quite the RNG, though. As we know, Mursa has, with Maximal, is 50% evasion off the base and then 20% from the Moonlight Dreamblade. So hitting that one crit in between to get her and finish her off was actually that's really what took the match. So Jinx took a huge gamble in match 1. It paid off really well for him, getting the stun onto the Dizzy as well. Just a lot of impact overall. I think it was more that Code didn't draft the heavy damage Kayron, as well as no crowd, that really lost him the match. I don't think Jinx's comp necessarily had as much pressure as it looked like. It's really just that the fact that he got the 1 crit, hits the 30%, gets the crit, wins the game from there.
Yeah, it definitely requires you to, since you already committed to it, to just keep committing and making your play from there, decide what happens after that. And game two, Pantry, bring us through that and tell us why, how strong again, just to reiterate, how strong of a pick Ruel is.
So in this case, match 2 was quite, like you said, Code start realizing that CDOM was actually the main problem. CDOM being banned away from Jinx actually shut down all the damage that he actually had remaining, leaving only SSB and Spectre Tenebria. Even though the Spectre was able to kill the Mursa and all that, it didn't exactly matter. Things got out of control very quickly. So Jinx here in this game, he opened up with Bazaar. He gambled his way to kill the Mursa, was able to kill the Mursa, but he had to burn away 4 souls in order to do it. This basically knocks out all kind of damage coming out from Jinx further from there, especially when he depends a lot on that turn 1. Code eventually banks on his Dizzy, actually chose to heal her up instead of actually reviving the Mursa. But that gave the Dizzy the chance to actually stun Jinx's team entirely, giving him an extra turn to actually just survive another round. And from there, the moment when Dizzy tossed out the S3, that was basically game. There wasn't anything else that Jinx could have done. He lost all sorts of damage. There was no souls remaining. SSB already fell. And that was it.
Yeah, honestly, Ruel being such a tanky unit, and we know Code has a really well built Ruel, it made it really difficult for him to kill Code's Ruel there, and let Code come back from that. And game three, really exciting there. We saw Mursa do a lot of work. Tiber, bring us through that.
Yeah. So that was a really good game, but we see the power of Code's draft right there, and how against these players who know how to pick apart your comps, playing that hard commit, even if you try to pivot last second, leaves you extremely vulnerable. If you noticed on the draft, the last pick was actually Bazaar, which if I had to pin it on one thing, I think that's it, because that enabled Code to ban out the Spectre Tenebria. He knows that Bazaar is not on Abyssal Crown, so it is reduced in impact. And all of a sudden, Jinx was left with solo SSB as his damage source into a Roana. For those that don't know, Roana S2 heals the entire battlefield based on a counterattack, extra attack, or dual attack. So anytime SSB is doing her thing, all she is doing is healing the enemy team, keeping her up, as well as her allies. If it misses into Mursa, every time she gets an evasion, it reduces the skill cooldown of S3. And Ruel is just an extremely tanky threat that allowed Code to just tank up. Even though Mursa was crit by the SSB early on in the game that allowed for the kill, there was just so much tankiness on Code's side that allowed him to turn the tide of the battle, even without Arbiter Villager. There just wasn't enough sustain on Jinx's side.
Yeah, and we saw there how Code adapted to that first game. It was difficult for him. He realized what he needed to do, and then when it came to game 2, game 3, Code knew what to pick, knew what to ban, and was able to adapt appropriately there.
There's not much you can do into that kind of comp. It was a very good draft. Like, we were talking about it as soon as the draft screen was finishing. There really wasn't a good ban for Jinx to do, because everything was a hard counter to what you tried to bring. One potential misplay that you may have noticed was right before Mercer nuked the Hussar. If he had at least provoke or some option to mitigate the Mercer S3, that could have happened. Jim?
Yeah, and looks like the next matches are going, so let's get this next match going underway.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Looking into this pre-ban right off the back, I was gonna actually say Snow and Eska both. When I was looking through some of their picks that they had picked yesterday, both of them tend to pick against whoever their opponent is. They don't necessarily like have their own specific style. They're much more like counterplay type players, which I guess in and of itself is a style. Talk about that for me, like moving into this particular draft. Are we seeing a lot of that exist in this particular draft?
I mean, again, like when people pick FCC into SSB into Valencia and then the DN somewhere, that's not really there's not really too much like specific counterplays going on. But I think, and a lot of times you'll see that in the first. You asked this in the first match too, right? On the first game, I think a lot of the drafts tend to be a little bit more meta or a little bit more like boring, so to speak, because sometimes you do need to take a game to sort of understand how their units are built. You do need to take a game to note down what their HP values are, how many debuffs you land, stuff like that, right? Because they could have and they should have changed up their units and fine-tuned their units from yesterday. So it's not too much of a surprise, but we've seen this from Snow and from Big B, that once the second game and the third game kicks in, that's when a lot of adaptations and counterplay starts coming in.
Right. And I think what you're saying, I think actually speaks into a little bit of what I was even saying here too, is like, so if they changed up stuff yesterday, just to sort of like swap some gear around, make sure that their characters don't look exactly the same for day 2, but also knowing what they are so that they know how to play in today. Are we in for some interesting drafts? Do you think we'll start seeing different characters every single time? Because I mean, this one we already saw Blue Rose coming in from Snow X right off the bat. I think that may be the first time we've seen it in the tournament. And I'm guessing that it was just for either a speed check or something to pop in here somewhere. But oh my goodness, wow. That was a lot of damage right off the bat.
Before we even talk about interesting draft, I want to just point out that there's a very interesting placement, because the SSB is standing in front.
Yeah.
So he deliberately chose not to give the SSB a damage share target. But yeah, I mean, also the
that's a
K-Rod's
very
no
good point,
longer
especially having a
because
Ruel
Bassar
on your
landed.
team and stuff too. Like, you had some tanky people you could have put up front maybe to tank some of that. Interesting choice.
Yeah, but the reason we don't see a K-Ron here right now is because Bassar landed on the K-Ron, and we've all seen that before.
Yep.
It's a little bit unfortunate.
Wow, this game is...
There's not much to say about this game.
Yeah, this one is ending quickly.
Yeah,
Snow is just
completely
mopping up. Holy cow. Is that the fastest game of today? Not even a cleave team, and we see that going through that quickly.
Stuff happens, right? Stuff happens when green hits red,
That was incredibly fast. So right off the bat, we've got Snow up 1 over Eska. Okay, so let's assume that moving into this game too, because I'm hoping that based on what you're saying too, that we're going to see very different draft styles come out, and then I'll be interested to see if Snow plays into that as like sort of a counter pick to it, or if he continues to say like, actually, I'm just going to play what I played in game 1. But again, I think we're not. That's not the style of player they are based on what we've seen. What do you guys think? Do you think they're going to just continue to pick against each other? Because that's what I've been seeing so far from both players throughout all of their matches so far.
I agree with you, Arky. We have that this wonderful Excel sheet, which was made by someone in the
Mango.
community, correct? Mango. Shout out to Mango.
Seven roll, boys. Can we get some shouts in the chat for that guy? Literally,
Definitely. Shout out to Mango.
So many amazing notes yesterday. Hooked up the analyst desk and us as well to be able to see some of those stats. Otherwise, we may have forgotten. So it's all good.
Yeah, and I've been taking a look too, and I think you're onto something. Snow in particular. We'll see how he changes this up.
So he picks a safe early ban, which is, I think, pretty smart when you're trying to just counter pick in that particular way, right? You kind of want to start with something safe and then see what they go, and then kind of counter the counters, right?
So there's an interesting pre-ban here in the form of Lilius, right?
Oh, I was expecting unit. I wanted to see the unit.
Yeah, but so according to the Excel sheet that we just brought up, Lilius was not pre-banned at all yesterday, right? So I'm a little bit curious about this Lilius pre-ban. Is this also some sort of sign that he has some sort of debuff?
That's a good question.
Coming in, we'll see.
It's very possible. No, that's actually a super good point, because that's going to be your main reason why you would consider getting rid of her early, right? Unless you're worried
otherwise,
about...
I'm a little bit curious why decided to go for the Lilius, because there are only two big reasons you fear the Lilius. One, you fear her for her cleanse, and two, you kind of fear her for her dispel, right? Because we've seen, yes, her S1 is very strong, but in a 4-man situation, the randomness of her target, of her partner, is a little bit higher, so you can't necessarily rely on that. And we've seen like counter picks against that, like in the form of Rowana, who can mitigate what the S1 does. So if you're not worried about debuffs and you're not worried about the provoke, like, I'm interested to hear why Lilius was the pre-ban.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to see this jumping right in. Another couple of weird, interesting, even towards the end of that draft too. We are seeing an A. Coley come out this game. We're seeing Little Queen. These guys are literally, feels like counter picking each other. This is awesome. Like totally different teams on both sides this time around. Not completely, but very similarly, very different, I would say.
That was not an immunity on the Little Queen, right? So
nope.
So the Little Queen didn't get stunned. And this is the Sigurd side. Okay, so Little Queen decides not to go for the S3 even though she was missing some HP. Do you guys think that was a heads-up play? Especially considering there is a potential Alencia coming to get rid of the immunity anyway. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think I would have went for it there personally. Because Charles didn't have defense buff, and there's no way to bring the Charles back. So I think I would have S3 the Charles there.
I guess I'll shoot this one
over on counter, right?
Yeah, I guess I'll shoot this one to the analyst desk, right? Like, why did the Little Queen not S3 when there is an Alencia coming to strip the immunity and, she was missing some HP?
Man, we are seeing a pretty... Oh.
Cricket noises,
a stream end. We'll give him just a second to pull that back up.
Are the players aware that the stream?
Yeah. They're getting it on this side. They're fixing it up. So the stream had ended.
All right, sit tight, guys.
I'm assuming most likely because not. Go to a different. Okay, we'll be right back. We'll move this over to here for now. They may. I don't know if they're going to. I'll let them figure that out. They've got this on the back end, but that was looking a lot like. I hate to say a lot similar because that's not a good sentence. Holy moly. Was any of that sentence good? No.
No, it was. I mean, it was
literally
pretty similar.
Let's try that again. That was looking similar. Snow was literally looking to basically do a very similar thing again to Eska. It was looking very similar. I don't know if they're planning on replaying that particular match or not. It looks like the match is over. I can see over at Katie's screen, so we will we'll wait on the results on that if they decided, because I'm going to leave that up to the players to decide on what they want to do on that one. But yeah, that was looking pretty grim for Eska. What is it that Snow is doing? Like, what is that X factor that he is bringing with his counter picks at the end that's like sort of making this happen? Because it just felt so similar. I know he had Alencia and Charles have been two things that I think we've seen now in, I believe that was both games from him, and both of them have been opening up. I believe
a good
that's correct.
question,
I'm not 100%, but
because Eska had a great showing yesterday, and this one, like you said, very similar. Both matches like decided super quick. Maybe Lilac and Warbolt have some input on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So so I'm gonna go ahead and take some guesses, right? So
Okay.
I actually really enjoy Snow as a player. I think he's a very, very, very smart player, and I think he also pays a lot of attention to his opponents' like units and stuff.
Yeah.
So yesterday we did see that the little Queen Charlotte was on Sigurd, right? And we did see that she looked like she was taking a little more damage than your usual bulky little Queen Charlotte. So I think in that last draft he remembered that and he factored that in. He last picked the Akoli knowing that he was going to outspeed, and he used the Akoli on the little Queen knowing that he won't kill. However, I think he sort of had some calculation in his mind, knowing that by softening her up and then with the follow-up damage, you can just get rid of the little Queen, right? And getting rid of the little Queen makes a lot of things so much easier. You don't have to worry about the damage coming out from her, and you don't have to worry about her passive going in. So I like to think that Snow did the homework, noticed the little details, and planned that strategy accordingly.
I would guess that that's pretty similar. Sorry, hold on. Yes. Okay, cool. So we have our refs have confirmed we are getting a victory in from Snow. That was the victory screen that was shown through. So it is a 2-0. We're going to swap back over to the analyst desk to talk about that one. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see the actual end of game 2. We did see a good portion of it. We already saw that it was heavily in favor of Snow. So we did see that, and we did get the outcome there. But let's have Pantry take us through game 1 and what happened to Eska there.
I mean, we definitely all saw it. Basar is actually an ML unit, right? Landing all the debuffs on Eska's team was actually quite brutal. So basically how all this escalated, so the drafts. The drafts basically here was that Eska tried to use the Ruel DN. However, it looks like Snow actually came out to try to do a turn 1 team on top of Eska. Regardless of what the bans were, I believe Eska banned the Rose in response because then he was scared of a turn 1 cleave. Snow banned the DN most likely in assumption that the Basar was going to get banned, but that wasn't the case. Basar getting through was actually just the deciding factor, and then he just landed everything, and Snow just proceeded to cleave. Once all of Eska's units just goes down, there was no way that he could recover with just Ruel and just 1 revive. Revive expected Tenebria trying to actually recover the match. It did not work out whatsoever. Basar just proceeded to land the debuffs. Ruel goes down. Game ended from there.
Yeah, as we saw, game 1 was definitely really quick there. Definitely Basar landing the debuff was big deciding factor there, unfortunately. And game 2, we didn't see the full end of it, but game 2 we saw it going definitely following a similar trend. And once again, want to take us through at least the first half of the breakdown.
Yeah, the first half of game 2. So as we know, Eska knows Snow very well, so he knows it's going to be a Bruiser FSS. He knows it's going to be a Bruiser Alencia and the fast Charles to push and stuff. So we know that because of his ban from the first round on the Rose. The interesting thing in the second match was, well, first of all, so he did get the resistance on the LQC against the Akali, so there's no stun in that sense. But the one play that, had everyone wondering, I know Lilac said it, and I think Car6 said it as well, but like, why did he skill 1 with the Little Queen Charlotte when he had Sigurd Scythe? I can't tell you why. I don't think it was a good choice. Maybe the thought process was we can cut, but every crit she takes is only 15%. So I don't think there's any like valuable reason for her to do that. I think it should have definitely been a skill 3 kill on the Charles. Stops the attack buff. It lowers the damage for the rest of his like kind of like cleave with the bruisers here. So I don't think that it was necessarily a good choice not to skill 3. But outside of that, I mean, there's not too much else to talk about in that match.
Yeah, and that was definitely one thing we were all talking about, whether it was the casters, the analysts on the back end here right now. When that happened, is most of us were very interested or confused as to why there was no skill 3 coming out to at least try to nuke out the Charles and maybe regain even a bit more health there. But as we saw, yeah, round 2 did end up going to Snow there, as it was falling that by the time Snow got his turn up, the Alencia and the Fallen Cecilia was already starting to dish up a lot of damage there. And with that said, we have the next match being Careless And either Bulge, go Careless. Not biased, by the way. Getting their next matches going. So, without further ado, let's take it back and let's have Ark get ready to take us through that next match.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Careless versus Aether Bulge, who, if I'm not mistaken, chat was saying is now #1 on the ladders. Interesting.
Yeah. This is going to be a very unbiased match as I send this card in. Guys, don't forget to use your stream loot cards.
Yeah, not biased at all. Notice that I didn't have to say anything about Snow. He just performs, boys. He performs. I nothing. Moving into the match, though, we do see a Basar and a DN pre-ban. So that's interesting. I wonder, is it just from the Basars that we've been seeing today that Careless is just like, I don't even want to deal with that. I want to play with something a little different. What do we think about these guys going into each other head to head right now, knowing kind of where they both sit?
I think Aether has a lot of advantage going into this match, even if we don't count any form of rank or experience, right? Because yesterday, honestly, he picked a very tame roster against his opponents yesterday. So he really didn't. There wasn't really any draft that really that the Stina draft and his first draft in his first round really didn't feature it didn't really feature any of his huge roster that he has access to. So there's going to be very little information on some of his very powerful units, right? And so Aether is going to go into today with that advantage under his belt. So but at the very least, we're seeing him draft these honest units, so we're going to get to see what he brings to the table. So I think Careless he's going to have to do some really fast downloading on this first match, regardless of outcome.
That's interesting to say. So honest, tell me what you mean by honest units.
I'd say that the Stina second pick was not a very honest unit, but these are pretty honest units, right?
Okay.
Yeah, these look pretty standard in terms of drafts. I mean, there's not too many things you could do to surprise what you're going to do here. I mean, typically Krauls are built the same way. You can build a tanky RB. Typically Ravi does her thing, right? There's really not much room for a surprise here.
So a lot of respect from both players, right?
Yeah.
And they
it's
both
the first game. You can't start dancing, on the first game. You gotta at least play it proper.
I would agree. Going into game 1, we're seeing two, you can see the damage options they have on both sides, but also you can see that they've both decided and sort of opted into tanking up just at least a little bit. Seeing that we saw the Alencia earlier in the ban phase, and then picking Maid into it, was that just a confidence pick, saying I'm still okay with picking Maid into this, or why would you pick a Maid into an Alencia situation? Because I'm sure Aether had his reasons.
Well, that Maid has shown that she has some resistance, right? Going ahead and resisting the S2 on turn 1, and maybe she doesn't care. Right.
I think with Made into Alencia, now since he hasn't put up the attack buff, Careless has to wait before popping his S3. In turn, he doesn't have defense buff now. So his units can still do good damage without having to worry about the defense buff. It's just kind of a trade-off, I think.
So it's an interesting big brain play that sort of equals that tit for tat back and forth. I'm not going first. Who's going to draw first? Situation. Interesting. That's pretty big brain. I don't think I would have thought of that one. That's good. That makes sense then.
So does that just mean that we can assume this RB's on basket? Because without it, Ravi benefits from attack. Don't get me wrong, but then she can still function without the attack buff, right? So if RB here carries his own basket and procs in a reasonable rate, then maybe there is no need for the attack buff.
Yeah, this is true.
Let's see. So this probably will not be a battle that ends very quickly. Noted just based on the characters, both sides having at least one reser, but Bulge having 2 as well. Tell me about that with the resing situations, because I've always really loved a Ravi with Ruel. Is it Is it harder to? Would you say that the better res is on the Ruel on the one side, or do you think having like two low HP resers in your A Ravi and your maid Chloe have the advantage here, just based on comps going into?
I think the better res obviously belongs to Ruel, right? Because she gets to choose who she brings back. So even if you don't count the secondary effects, choosing when and who to bring it back, bring back without any conditions is just far superior. But I think the APOC, I think you mostly would think of APOC as a good bruiser unit that has the potential to res. I don't think in a lot of situations you can count on the res 100%, because the enemy there is a certain condition for it to activate. She has to kill someone with the S3, so the S3 might not be up and people might not be in range to kill.
We do see the maid res pop on Arbiter Vildred, so still has the ability to come back for his Descending Blade after he dies a second time. They are looking pretty healthy, though, on Careless side, so I'm not sure that they're too terribly worried about that coming in at this point.
Decides to rip S3 on Lilius.
Not quite enough damage. Do you think that was a misplay, or would you have done that too, just in general? Because I guess it doesn't matter elementally, or does it matter elementally to see if you would get like the miss going from a water unit in?
I think he just wanted to get the damage out, because it's looking like this match is going to last longer than some of these other matches we've had. So I think it's just a good chance that this Kraus S3 is going to be back up to where he can use it again. So you might as well rip it out earlier to get the damage out, to put some more pressure on him, right?
That makes sense. These guys are definitely taking this pretty seriously for these final matches. Not willing to go out without at least a fight. And I would say that probably both of these guys are very used to. Anybody that's used to playing these like bruisery comps also probably have a good chunk of experience dealing with like, okay, what characters are going to be my benefit when we start getting into higher frenzy, and where can I capitalize on this? They're probably also used to seeing it, right? So it'll be interesting to see if they know, because I feel like that's one of those stats that we're going to see as time goes on, is that your high-end players are going to really understand where their peaks are, and when that frenzy spot hits where they're like, now I can capitalize. Like, they'll see it because they'll know their turn order. I wonder, at this high of level of play with these guys right now, do they already know that? Is that something that they've already thought through?
Maybe Warbolt can answer that, because you have plenty of experience playing at this level, right?
Hey, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Did you want to go?
Oh, no. Go ahead. Shoot.
So the question is, if you're used to playing tanky comps like this, and you're sort of used to like them going into a decent level of frenzy, have the high-end legend players figured out what level of frenzy it is before they're like, this is the level where my team pops off. I know exactly when my team pops off, and I'm ready to just like completely execute at this point.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Cool.
Because like, these are typically the kind of drafts that I play, and I know the longer you take these fights, you're subject to just bad RNG, right?
Sure.
Like, one dual attack can be the decider of this match, kind of thing, That's just kind of how I feel about it, anyways.
No, that's fair. So I guess I wonder if that will be a thing as time goes on. Like, if that will be almost a requirement to being at that legend levels. Like, you just get so used to, like, I know where my power spikes are with my characters, and I know that this is when I can actually finish stuff off. I get that that's especially a hard question now, because I mean, we've only had RTA now for what, 2 months max? That's pretty. I mean,
season 1, yeah. I mean, it's been around for probably about 5 now, I think, right? 4 or 5.
Has it really?
Yeah, I think closer to what Warbolt's saying, yeah.
Oh, dang.
But
well, then I really think that they should know this by now. Hello, player? No, I'm just kidding. That's honestly, we're looking at it totally like just different games, and I feel like the meta's changing so often too right now that it's also making it harder probably to figure out when those spikes are too. But we are down to 3. The Arbiter Vildred is dead at the moment to get back into the match. Still waiting, I think. I'm assuming the res should be coming out here relatively soon. Gets the bonk. There we go. Now we're talking.
So to bring back up a conversation we had earlier, right? Picking the maid into Alencia. So we brought up some points for why how the maid can hold her S3, and why it's not necessary and it's not that bad. But I still think that the fact that you're holding the maid S3 is not a good thing. And I also think that if you have to rely on the maid using the res for an actual res and not a proactive buff, it makes it very difficult, right? Because we've seen a couple of maids try to rely on the soul burn extra turn, get the res off, but then very seldom does that actually work. Maid does not, I don't think, for the most part, I think that maid does not play well from behind, because when she brings your units back, your units just get killed almost immediately, and especially so if there's still 4 people standing on the opponent's side. So I definitely will also throw this question over to the analyst as like, do you think the maid here really did her job? Because like this right here, right?
Yeah, like you just said,
just sniped off the Arbiter Villager, and doesn't really work.
I think, like you mentioned, playing from behind, Aether Bulge, he had a little bit of momentum going, but he wasn't able to finish the Lilius, and since then, like, Ruel's just been sitting on most of her cooldowns. It's you would say Ruel, just in an extended fight, of course, has way bigger advantage.
Yeah, that's mainly what it is here. Because, like, I don't have Ruel, but I do have Maid. And a lot of the times I'll lose in higher end RTA is because my Maid just didn't do enough during the fight. So in longer fights, like, especially with, like, going against another Reviver, I think Maid's a little bit better if you're going against a more all-in comp that's not going to last as long.
That's a really good point. And I had a question for you, too. As the game goes on, with Alencia, at a certain point, once you have taken down all 3 and you're waiting for the maid to res 2 of them up, you can kind of save the Alencia S3 at that point to be like, oh, you brought them back up? They're all dead. One S3, with these built Alencias, is just taking out somebody that's at their like 20% or 25% that they come back at, right? So Alencia still has the upper hand even as the game goes on. So holding on to those buffs, is it worth it? That's super interesting. I realize it's a little bit theory crafting, but that's an interesting thought to know, like, is that just a pure hard counter, what we're seeing in Alencia?
I mean, I do believe that, a lot of what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? Because against two enemies, you don't even need the defense up necessarily, right? You can put it up when you feel threatened, but until then, if the amount of damage coming out from the enemy team is a lot less as the match goes on, then you can just hold your S3 permanently for whatever the mate decides to S3, right? Right. And if you've seen that you have enough effectiveness to strip the res and strip the buffs from the important units, then you can really just indefinitely hold that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, we are getting close to what feels like the end of A. Ravi's life here, and then having to wait for the final. Oh my gosh, dude, these Alencia builds on these guys are just so good. She just crushes through health.
Yeah, not looking good. What could have Aether Bulge done then? If you guys are saying May Chloe is worse as time progresses, he needed to be just way more offensive. I felt like he was kind of doing that with the early Crow S3.
The Deanne was pre-banned, right?
We can ask we should ask our analysts. They have that all recorded.
Because I really think Deanne would have been a better pick there than Maid.
Sky King?
Basardian.
Oh, thank you.
Basardian.
Okay, so she was.
Thanks, dude. Okay, so Basardian, do you see Ruel getting banned out now? Like, having to deal with, like, the better res. What do we see this second time around?
Well, I think there's an alternative way to think about this. Here's the thing. You don't always look at attack buff, because attack buff is a 1.5 times damage output modifier, right? If the enemy is threatening some really strong dispels and you can't put up buffs, then you don't necessarily have to rely on just buffing your own units. Remember that defense break doubles effectively the damage taken. So instead of if you see there's strong units like Alencia that your opponent has, then maybe you don't have to rely on attack up. You can rely on defense break. And since we're talking about that, I just want to point out that Elfelt has good base speed, and with a soul burn applies defense break and sleep, ignoring effective resist. I just want to put that out there. If anyone's listening, just keep that in mind.
It's huge. And
If
by
she's
the way,
fast
he's
enough
not
and she has
sponsored by
souls-
Smilegate to say that. So this is actually his opinion.
Right. If Elfelt has souls and she's fast, she ignores effect resistance, puts defense break and a sleep on a target. So, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And we really, I really want to start seeing a lot of these players start, because Alencia, Basar, all of these units are there, right? So if you change your draft around, you start focusing on some of their cleansing options. If you can remove, or if they don't draft some of these cleansing options, then you can rely on things like defense break and things like debuffs.
That's super interesting. I wonder if we'll start seeing. We are seeing the crowd favorite Blood Moon Haste. Thoughts on this? Because this was like relatively early picked, and it does allow. Oh, please, Dark Corvus. Please, I want to see it. I think the Alencia makes more sense, but I want to see the Dark Corvus.
The Tank Buster Dark Corvus, like we mentioned yesterday.
Yeah. Oh man, because we are seeing a relatively standard draft by Careless too. A lot of big damage in the Arbiter and the SSB. Also with the tank up of FCC and Crow. Like those are, if I haven't seen a standard group of picks, that's it right there. What Careless has right there, that looks pretty solid. So tell me about Arthur's kind of picks into this.
To me, it looks really all in, and I'm guessing he's like both Kayron and Haste are pretty good picks into RB, I think. So I guess the if I was Careless here, I think the ban would be out of one of those two, because SSB and RB both deal with S-Tini very well. So in this circumstance, I don't think like she's like a high priority ban for me, but like leaving the Haste there is like it's I've seen Haste used, and like it's actually surprising how good he is. So I guess we'll just see who he decides to ban here.
Yeah, this will be interesting. He's hovering over it. We can watch. So Ruel gets picked again for Careless. Honestly, would you guys not agree that Careless's draft just looks very, very like perfectly standard? He's basically willing to play the standard.
I'm very surprised by his draft, because the enemy picked Haste and Vivian, and you brought no dispels into this. That's a lot of barrier. That's a lot of immunity against your team, right? It shuts down a lot of what SSB wants to do. It makes it such that your FCC can't provoke anyone. So I'm actually curious why he didn't opt to go for any form of dispel, but I guess he saw that raw bulk worked last time, so maybe it's gonna work against this time. It's gonna be a lot harder though, because ML Haze does bring some pure damage, and there's always Spectre Tenebria.
Yeah, and this may be the small brain play here, but I'm seeing 2 water units, one of which being SSB to deal with both Kayron and Lilius here. Is that going to be super like problematic for this other team? Not to mention the fact that Spectenny can also take a lot of damage from the SSB. And there's a lot of tank to be able to get through, to be able to actually reach hitting that SSB. What do you guys think?
So the bans are also very, very strange, right?
Yeah.
Because there was some, I don't know, it certainly looked like there was some mind game on top of mind game, right? So Aether banned out the Arbiter Vildred after picking ML Haste, right? Does this mean that he predicted Careless to ban ML Haste? Because
that's what I think happened. Yeah,
instead of Lilius, because now you banned out the thing that enables your ML Haste to function.
It's a huge mind game. These guys are, man, I'm telling you, these guys are out to win this today. Like that's some huge big brain stuff coming out there to be able to.
Right, you almost want the Arbiter Vildred to be there so that S-Tani can kill him, and then it gives you the invincibility. It gives you immunity, right, against what the SSB wants to do.
And it was Aetherbolt yesterday, right, that had an amazing showing, like a showcase on how good Haste could be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I believe it was.
So I actually think that the Vivian ban proved to be super next level.
It actually made a lot of sense, right? Because it gets the immunity buff, and then after that,
the double
goes around,
mind game.
there's
I'm
more
just
immunity.
so impressed by that right now. If that's actually what went down, I am so impressed by that.
It is looking pretty good right here. We're going to get another rebuttal from the SSB, which is going to finish off the Spectre Tenebria. Now what? You know, like at this point, as long as you don't get full clipped by the Kayron, which I think would be very difficult to get through that defense buff, as well as I mean, you can't do it to Crow, you can't do it to Ruel. I mean, you do crit a lot with Kayron, but into water, but do you?
At this point, Team Car 6 needs a miracle. And I'm praying.
Because he wants to get rid of the Ruel in a reasonable manner, because the SSB is very vulnerable right now. She has no more partner, right? Unless the Crow is holding another Aureus.
Yeah.
So once you get rid of the Ruel, you're free to get rid of the SSB, and then, you know, like, then it becomes a lot easier to fight. And also, we have to keep in mind that Haste S3 does a very, 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 very significant healing. So he still has that, I think.
It's very true. So he's gonna get the heal off here, which is gonna be big for Ruel. I think they're trying to crush out the Ruel as fast as possible because they're assuming that she's going to S3 and bring back FCC. But do you even hold on to the FCC and just keep use it on the Ruel again? Make him crush your health bar twice.
Oh, yep. Just get rid of the Kayron. I think it's very, very, very difficult now. I'm trying to think of outs for either Bulge here, and I can't really come up with too much other than, you know, his just goes absolutely ham with haste, because the Ruel can just opt not to res, right? Don't res, don't enable the Blood Moon haste, and between Crow's defense up, the horse ticking down, and SSB still living despite not having a partner.
Yeah, so Lilac, let me ask you, based on your commentary, how much would you say the pre-draft, the ban phase, was it over as soon as it started? Would that mind game happen?
I don't think it completely decided the match outcome, but I think it very much influenced it, because if there was an Arbiter Vildred on the side of Careless, he can actually make plays to enable a lot of things, right? So one, the Vivian, so even if the Vivian was banned out, the Spectani brought her own book. She could have easily sniped out the Arbiter Vildred on the start of turn 1, right? That gets rid of his passive, that gives either a huge shield and immunity to work with. SSB's first turn S3 no longer applies any debuffs. He would have been in such a much better position, I think.
Yeah, that's super huge. Well, that was honestly Careless literally just like knocked it out of the park. Really amazing stuff. We're going to hand this back over to the analysts and let them kind of talk you guys through this. So sending it back to you guys.
Thank you, Other Gabe. And totally unbiased opinion, go Careless. All right. And on that note, with that said, Pantry, let's hear from you what you thought about round 1.
So round 1 definitely looked like a Battle Frenzy fight straight off the bat. Both players actually picked really, really safe. So the first question that the casters gave us for the analysts, it's like, do you think May did her job versus the Alencia and whatnot? So the thing about Alencia is that she's very good at diffusing fights, being able to strip away buffs, and also being able to put up a defense buff is a very, very big deal. This basically allows him to actually mitigate a lot of damage, but also stop the enemy team from even taking, like, not being able to do any damage at all. With no attack buffs and no buffs coming out from the maid, she literally didn't do anything the entire time. She had to hold on to her S3, trying to see if there was an opportunity. And there was actually one opportunity where the Crow got a lucky provoke on the Alencia, and the maid was able to drop out her S3. But after that one turn, that was it. If there was no kill potential from there for Bulge, he definitely wouldn't be able to come back from there. So this game was really dependent on the draft. Judging from first glance, like I said, it was a Battle Frenzy fight. Both players opted to play very safe, with SSB being banned from Aether Bulge's side and Kayron being banned from Careless's side. As mentioned, with Alencia being on the field, she diffuses a lot of damage coming out of Bulge. making him unable to remove any units from Careless. He basically just tanked out the entire thing with double Knights and Alencia and Ruel. If anything, since Maid was being picked, Ruel probably could have been another option of being banned, especially with how aggressive Aether was actually playing when he picked Maid. If Ruel was actually would have been banned, the match probably wouldn't have to be stalled out for so long, and Bulge probably would have had a chance. Careless basically held his ground, removing Bulge's units one by one, with Maid reviving Bulge's units a little bit too low, and the combat readiness not actually being up there for Bulge, and he just got obliterated.
All right. Thank you. And definitely a lot of you guys probably wondering about game 2, especially here. There was a lot of things that definitely decided the game there, and a big part of it I would say was the mind games. But let's have Tiber expand on that for us.
You know, leaving Gabe's bias aside, you know, with Careless at being his favorite to win this tournament, that was a masterclass in drafting, banning, and skill usage, hands down. That was extremely well played by him. To expound upon what the casters were talking about, you know, the analysts were freaking out in chat as well as the ban phase was happening behind the scenes. Who are they going to ban? Who are they going to ban? Vivian's mad value to ban out, because Haste, as we had talked about in his debuts yesterday, he is very specifically an Arbiter Builder to counter. Only in some circumstances is he a counter to people who have the choice to revive. That was a common theme we had seen yesterday as well. You know, it's not GG the moment they draft the Caesarado into your debuffers, for example. You can choose to sit on your S1 and just poke until you are comfortable nuking him, for example. In this case, first of all, the second you ban out Avildred, if you expect the Avildred ban, you don't have to ban Haste at all, because by leaving him in, he's basically relegated to a dud unit here and there, you know? And we saw that. FCC was insta-dead. We saw the good mechanic in Haste's S1 strip removal, strip on the buff removal of the defense buff on FCC, which enabled the kill, instantly making it a 3-man team for Careless. But you saw that Ruel just held on to S3, choosing to S1 in favor on the K-Ron just to get a little bit more poke, and then S2ing herself later on, and she could have even S3'd herself, which does not count as a revive. It's just a big burst heal and invincibility for a unit. It's just an incredibly powerful presence of mind. Even though you may want to revive a powerful unit like FCC, just completely nullifying everything that Haste wants to do, preventing that barrier, which is 60% of his max HP. It's absolutely insane. At a 24k HP build, which most I think will end up being around based on his base HP, being like 54 or 74 or something like that. 16k barrier is huge. But as the game went on, with Haste being in the SSB Crow into Fire, Dark, doesn't really play out well for Bulge there. Careless just took it home. It was very well done.
Yeah, we definitely saw how ML Haste being good against certain units like Arbiter Vildred, maybe Chloe's, maybe even Ruana's, but against the Ruel here, definitely had a much more difficult time trying to make use of the ML Haste there. And on that note, Once in Love, you want to talk a little bit real quickly about the draft style for us?
Yeah, so I really like these two players. I think they're probably two of my favorite players to watch when it comes to drafting. They both adjust to each other, and they both adjust to the opportunities that present them really well. They both like to pick mind games, but they also know what they're comfortable with. They know that their drafts actually fit really well, even if they take these pocket picks like the ML Haste and stuff like that. Something that was really interesting to me, when Careless went for the Ruel last pick, he knew, and he said to himself, if he bans my RB, SSB will kill his S10E. SSB will deal with pretty much everything else on the team, right? Because he knows the how tanky he is, how much damage he can output. And then he also looked at it and he said, okay, well, if he bans SSB and the RB sits up, then I'll just rotate on him a million times and it'll never end. So, like, being able to like sit there and say, okay, what is the strongest pick for him? It's going to be the damage, right? The attack buff from the Vivian plus the immunity is going to be what holds him back. It's just incredible watching these players like actually take the time. Like, I know if you were to watch the replay or anything, like we see them, they spend the 30 seconds thinking about what they want to do, and they always make these really accurate picks and bans. Absolutely phenomenal choices. Another thing, like Tiber said, not using the revive on the Ruel for the FSESI early. There was an opportunity near the end of the match where I thought he was actually going to use the skill 3 on his Ruel to keep it alive. Didn't need it, of course, because his skill 2 is really strong, but that is another really big opportunity for why Ruel, I think, fits better against the ML Haste than a lot of the other revivers, is that her skill 3 still has usages even if you're not reviving someone, right? You get full HP and an invincibility. So if he wanted to protect his SSB even longer, that was an option too.
Thank you so much for that insight. All right, guys, and I know a lot of you guys are probably, your bums hurt. You guys have been sitting there for the last 2 hours. So if anything, you guys probably hear this a lot. Get up, stretch, grab some water. If not, you guys can sit here and mold. We're going to take a quick break, guys. Be back after this.